we're still at this short sentence in Romans 11:11. Through their fall, salvation is coming permanently to the Gentiles. This is Paul's explanation for what has happened or was happening during the first decades after Yeshua's life on this planet, after his suffering, death, and resurrection. Now, I showed to you that this is the ongoing theme in the book of Matthew, the theme that runs through the book of Acts. And I have to show you several pieces and puzzles that come together here. And I first jump now into the rabbinic literature. I'm sorry for all those Christians who have to listen to this and who don't know who Rambam is. If you go through Jerusalem, you find a street in the name Rambam. Some of you might know him by the name Maimonides. His name actually was Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. And if you take Rabbi, Moshe ben Maimon, so R-M-B-M, you make Rambam. That's how Jewish people talk about him. He lived from 1135 to 1204. So that at the second half of the 12th century, he was born in Cordoba in Spain, lived and worked mainly in North Africa, was chief rabbi of the Jewish community in Egypt, and then he actually was an advisor to the Sultan there, very high-ranking person, and he's buried in Tiberias, near the Sea of Galilee. He was a very outstanding Torah scholar, philosopher, astronomer, physician. Actually, the Jewish people says that from Moses, and they talk about the first Moses, who led the people of Israel out of Egypt to Mount Sinai, from Moses to Moses, Moshe ben Maimon, there was none like Moses. He actually tried to write a book at his time in the Middle Ages. Jewish knowledge already had grown that you had to be an expert in the law to understand everything. So he tried to condense that so that every Jew could understand it. And he wrote a collection of books that's called Mishneh Torah. Mishneh Torah is the repetition of the Torah, or the second Torah. So he just condensed what is important for a Jewish person to know if he wants to be a Jew. And in his section about how kings should behave and how they should lead wars, it's Mishneh Torah, Hilchot Mlachim u'Milchemotehem, about the kings and the wars. There's a very interesting passage where he talks about Messiah. And I try now to condense something for you that there are such coincidences that I studied with one rabbi. He said, you have to learn this passage. And I read this with him. And I take you now very quickly through it and show you what is breathtaking in there. For me, it was a process. And at the same time, I studied with another rabbi, Isaiah 49, and I had in mind now, but Jesus is the Messiah. Now, the first breathtaking thing here is that Rambam Maimonides talks about Yeshua HaNotzri. And I'm taking you here into a passage that actually Jews would like to censor, rabbinical Jews, because Rambam talks about Yeshua HaNotzri. And Christians would like to censor because he doesn't talk very nicely about Christianity, and Muslims would like to censor it also, but I leave that out. So he says here, even Yeshua HaNotzri, who imagined himself to be Messiah, was killed in the framework of a court case. And then he goes on talking about him, and he says, but is there a bigger scandal like that? And what he means with that is Christianity. He does not talk about Christianity. He doesn't mention the name. But let's first look at what Rambam says about the Messiah. He says all the prophets have said that Messiah, first of all, has to be the Redeemer of Israel and their Savior. Secondly, he has to gather the scattered, the dispersed ones of Israel. Think of how the disciples came and say, will you now bring back the kingdom for Israel? Rambam would have agreed with the disciples. And thirdly, the calling of the Messiah is that he says he will consolidate their commandments. He will root them in Torah. And then he compares that with Christianity. He doesn't mention it by name. He says that. What did that do? And remember, Rambam is speaking about Christianity before the Spanish Inquisition, before the great massacres of the Crusaders, before the Middle Ages, before the Holocaust, and all that happened until today. He said, what does that do but destroy Israel with the sword? What does that Christianity do but scatter? And think of what our theology does. If we say they just need Jesus and then it's okay where they live. We de facto, from a Jewish point of view, by saying just let them accept Jesus and then they can scatter, we scatter them. And I don't want to go deeply into that, but Rambam was right. What does that do differently than falsify the Torah? I won't go into that now. It's a very humiliating topic for us as Christians. But the breathtaking thing is, how does Rambam continue? He says, but the thoughts of the Creator of the world. No human being has the ability to grasp it, because our ways are not his ways and our thoughts are not his thoughts. And I'm just quoting now Rambam in his Mishneh Torah. He says all these things about or around Yeshua HaNotzri and the Ishmaelite who came after him. That's what the Muslims would like to, but I don't go into that. He doesn't name him even by name. Let's focus on Yeshua HaNotzri, whom he names. That's very important. They are nothing but a preparation of the way for the King Messiah and to direct, repair the whole world to serve the Lord together, as it is written, and he now quotes the prophet Zephaniah, for then I will change the speech of the nations to a pure speech, so that all shall come and call upon or proclaim the name of the Lord, to serve him with one accord. That's not what I say. That's not what's written in the New Testament. That's what rabbinic literature says. And Rambam, Maimonides, is so honored that you hardly find a Jewish home in Israel where you don't find the Mishneh Torah.